Hey, hello again, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And if more people are able to join, that's wonderful. Hi, thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Serena Irani. I am a digital accessibility specialist at the Disability Equity Office, which is part of the Equity, Civil Rights, and Title IX office here at U of M. Today, we are going to be talking about how to design and share accessible Google Slides. So first, we have some Zoom webinar tips. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature to submit those, and we will try to answer as many as we can live. ASL interpretation and CART transcription or live captioning services are both available for today's workshop. You may need to click the More button in your Zoom toolbar in order to access these options. A recording of this workshop will be made available on ECRT's YouTube channel as soon as possible. The presentation slides being used today will also be emailed to all registered participants following the session. Okay, onto our agenda. So, the University of Michigan is committed to fostering an inclusive environment where the accessibility and the needs of individuals with disabilities are prioritized, ensuring equitable opportunities for all members of our diverse community. This workshop will cover a brief intro to digital accessibility, accessibility best practices for slide decks, and then a demo of how to apply these best practices within Google Slides and using the Grackle Slides extension tool. Finally, we will leave some time at the end for Q&A. During our workshop today, we encourage you all to ask any questions that you may have. We are not expecting anyone to be an expert in this work overnight. We want everyone to feel comfortable taking this opportunity to learn something new and grow your accessibility skills. Okay, to start things off, I'm going to give a little context for what we mean when we say digital accessibility. So, digital accessibility is about making sure that digital information and experiences can be accessed, participated in, understood, and made use of by all. The way we do this is by centering our guidelines and design best practices around the needs of users with disabilities. And because so much of the work we do here at this university is conducted online, digital accessibility applies to pretty much everything you can think of. So, websites, documents, presentations, communications, and much, much more. We are going to cover a lot of concepts and tools today, and one resource to help you navigate this work at a high level is the U of M digital accessibility website, accessibility.umich.edu. This is the place to go if you want U of M specific information on accessibility concepts, resources, upcoming training and workshop opportunities, and tools and services that are available to help you all with this work. So, moving on now to slide deck accessibility best practices. So, one of the easiest ways to make an accessible slide deck is to create an accessible template that you or your entire team can pull from each time. A lot of units and departments do this so that their slide decks are branded and formatted in a certain way. If you take the time to make those templates accessible and then everyone uses them, that's a huge win. In order to make slide deck templates that are accessible, you'll need to become familiar with what is called the slide theme in Google Slides. This is a feature that sets up the style and design of your entire presentation. If you make accessible design choices in the theme, they will preset for the entire slide deck, which is super convenient. During our demo later, I will show how to utilize the slide theme as well. So starting out with layout best practices, these are all things that are good to remember as you are initially creating slides content. So adding a title to every slide and making sure that title is unique. This is important because if someone that is using assistive technology were to try and find a specific slide in the deck, they can pull a list of the slide titles in the presentation and skim through them. It's not super informative if you have the same title for 5 slides in a row, or have a slide with no title at all. By default, slide layouts in Google should have a title element. We just want to make sure that we don't delete it. Next thing is to include slide numbers. If you're using the slide theme, you can adjust the placement or design of the slide numbers, and then it populates for your entire slide deck. Next tip is to leave an inch of margin space at the bottom of your slides. So this is a good design practice in general. You don't want to cram too much onto your slide and then no one can read it. What makes this an accessibility best practice is that if you're giving a presentation and there's closed captioning displayed on the screen, you don't want the captioning to display on top of your content. If you're having a hard time leaving space, it's probably a good idea to just split your content across more than one slide. Last layout practice is to use tables for actually displaying data, not for layout purposes. So if you've got a table in your slide deck because you're actually trying to present data or information in a table format, that's totally fine. If you've got stuff in a table simply because you wanted like 3 columns, that should be set using other design features, not the table element. Okay, for text formatting, we want to make sure we are picking legible, easy to read fonts. On the next slide, I will go over what an accessible font looks like, but a big thing to remember is that the font weight, the size, and the style all play a part in how legible your font is. When you're selecting your text size, think about the presentation format. So, is this an in person presentation or a virtual one? How far away will the audience be from the screen? How large of a display will the slide deck be projected onto? Can the audience follow along on their own devices? These are all good things to consider here. Another helpful thing is using lists instead of really dense paragraphs. When you create a list, you want to make sure you do that using the built-in functionality in Google Slides. This ensures that the list is formatted correctly and that it can be processed by assistive technology, which will tell users whether something is an ordered list, so like sequential or numbered, or an unordered list, like bullets, and that they are reading a list of items, not regular body text. Next tip is to add space between paragraphs using the built-in line and paragraph spacing. This is an important one. A lot of times we just hit the enter key repeatedly so that there's extra space between our text or list items. But this is something we want to adjust using the built-in spacing features. And then finally, I mentioned this on the previous slide about leaving margin space. If you can't fit everything on one slide, don't shrink the text so that it fits. Just split your content across more than one slide. Okay, so we get a lot of questions about what an accessible font looks like, and it's not always easy to just say, make it 20-point font or only use sans serif because readability depends on a lot of different factors. One way to judge how legible your font is by looking at the characters. So, are they distinct from one another? Do they have a relatively standard height and width? Are they too thick or too thin? And are there a lot of artistic embellishments that make it hard to read? This list of similar characters here are ones that are usually tricky to tell apart if the font is not accessible. So if I'm using a new typeface, I could check between the number one, the lowercase letter L, and the lowercase letter I. If they all look identical, that's not a good sign. I probably shouldn't use that font. We do have a few recommended fonts here. There are many, many more that are legible and accessible. We just picked some common ones like Arial, Atkinson Hyperlegible, Calibri, Georgia, and Verdana. Okay, onto descriptive hyperlinks. So, hyperlink text provides information about a link's destination or purpose. When we refer to descriptive hyperlinks, we're talking about using the link text to inform the user where the link will take them. So, meaningful link text gives us an idea of what the link is and where it will lead us if we click on it. We generally want to avoid using links that just say click here or read more because out of context, they don't really make any sense. I have no idea where the link will take me if I click on it. We also want to avoid using the full URL. So like HTTPS colon slash slash. If you're using something like a screen reader, that means you have to listen to a whole URL string of characters that don't always make sense or actually tell you what the web page is about. So for instance, we have a link in this slide with the text accessible links. If I click on it, it will take me to a web page about accessible hyperlinks. So it's well described. In Google Slides, there is a shortcut feature after you copy and paste a link that replaces the URL with the name of the website or document you're linking to, which will show in the demo. The other aspect of this is that we want it to be easy to visually identify if something is a hyperlink. So, for instance, with the link in our slide, I have a few different visual cues working here. I have blue text and an underline that makes it look different from the rest of the text on the slide. So I can pretty quickly say, oh, that's a link, even if it's not a URL. Last note on hyperlinks, it is pretty common to have QR codes during presentations so that people can scan the code and get to the resource easily. If you are using a QR code in your slide deck, I recommend also having a link so that there's more than one way to access it in case anyone cannot scan the QR code in real time. We also have a URL shortener resource at U of M that can make it easier to include short links in your presentation. Okay, onto accessible images. So to have an accessible image, we need to include a text description or a text alternative along with it. We usually call this alt text for short. Alt text is a way for people who are not sighted, who can't see very well, to be able to understand what is going on in the image you added to your slide deck. If someone is using assistive tech, the alt text you include is what will be read out to them to describe the image. And this is something you need to add to all informative, non decorative visuals. So that includes pictures, charts, graphs. any visual content. When you're writing alt text for an image, you can keep it pretty concise. One way I like to think about it is if you were looking at a picture and trying to describe it to someone over the phone, what details would you include? What visual information is important to convey to that specific person? That is what you want captured in the alt text. You don't need to include the words picture of or image of because assistive tech will tell the user this is an image before reading out the alt text description. If you have a complex visual, like an infographic or a map, you might need to have a longer text description. Sometimes this can get linked to an appendix section at the end of your slide deck, just to provide more detailed information about the visual. So I had mentioned that alt text needs to be added to all informative visuals, but what do you do with decorative visual objects? So things like shapes or graphics that don't really convey any useful information to the audience. In Google Slides, there's currently no built-in feature that allows you to mark objects as decorative. So they all need alt text. If you have decorative elements that repeat on a lot of slides, so like a slide header or footer, my recommendation would be to insert those decorative elements into the slide theme. This will make them part of the background of your slide, and you don't need to add alt text in that case. The other option is to use Grackle to mark specific objects as decorative, which we will demonstrate soon. Similarly, if you are using an image as the background of your slide, make sure you insert that with the slide background feature. That will also make sure it is decorative. One way to check if you've done this correctly is that you should not be able to select or click on your background image. It's like it's part of the wallpaper of your slide deck, not an interactive feature. Okay, next we're going to talk about use of color. So, two main practices we want you all to think about. The first is to select text colors with sufficient contrast against your slide background. Contrast is the difference in brightness between your text color and your background color. So right now, the header of my slide has a maize or yellow text color for the title. So that would be my foreground color. And then my background color is the blue of the header. So I would check contrast between maize and blue. There are a lot of different tools available for checking color contrast. I have one linked in the slides that works nicely with Google, but you can use whichever tool that you like. Contrast checkers will generate what is called a contrast ratio for you. That is the contrast between the foreground color and the background color you inputted. The magic number you're looking for is 4.5 to 1. So your contrast ratio needs to be greater than or equal to 4.5. If you are using a background image, we want to be careful about putting text on top of it. It makes it quite difficult to read the text regardless of which color you choose. My suggestion would be to either add a fill color for your text box so that it has like a solid background between the text and the image, or to adjust the transparency or opacity of the image itself so that it is much lighter or darker and the text is able to pop out against it. The other practice to consider with color is to avoid relying on color alone to convey meaning. So the idea here is that if you're using color to signal something to the audience, like red for an error or green for good, you want to make sure there are multiple ways to understand that visual cue. So for instance, we have an image of a pie chart on the right-hand side with 3 different colors. Maybe there's a key somewhere that says orange is yes, blue is no, green is maybe. But if someone can't distinguish between green and orange very well, the pie chart is now meaningless. We don't know which chunk of data corresponds with which label. One way to fix this in this case could be to add labels to the pie chart itself so that with or without the colors, we can still understand the data. If you're interested, there are tools available to help with testing images to understand how they might appear for individuals with specific color vision deficiencies. One trick that I like to use is to put my slide deck into print preview mode and check how all of the content appears in black and white. Okay, onto our final checks here. Once you have all of your slide content in place, you want to check what is called the reading order of your slide deck. So this refers to the order in which elements will be processed and read out loud by assistive technology. In a few minutes, I will demo how to check your reading order with either the tab check, so by using your tab key to move through the elements, or with the Greco Slides extension. You also want to review all of your slide content for density and spacing. So, did I leave enough margin space at the bottom? Do I have too much content on one slide? That kind of thing. We suggest running an accessibility checker like Greco Slides to check over your content before sharing or distributing it. And finally, if you are sharing a copy of your slides with others, we highly recommend sharing a view only version of your Google Slides, so not an exported PDF. There is a feature in Grackle Slides that can help with exporting PDFs and retaining some of that accessibility structure and metadata you added. But in general, exported PDFs will remove much of the work you did to make your slide deck accessible. And it's often more trouble than it's worth to try and fix that PDF version. Okay, so I'm going to move now to the Google Slides demo portion. I have two short links up on the slide. So the first one is to make a copy of the Google Slides practice deck that I'll be using. So if anyone wants to follow along on their own device, you can use that link to do so. We also have a short link to install Grackle Slides. That is that extension tool that I talked about that I will be demoing as well. So I'll give everyone a moment to either open up that practice doc if they'd like to. Okay, I'm going to exit out of the slides. Both of these links are also in the chat as well. Okay, so I'm going to pop over to our practice deck. This slide deck has a whole bunch of accessibility errors baked into it. So now we're going to walk through how to identify and resolve some of those accessibility issues. So first thing we're going to take a look at is the slide theme for our presentation. If you're not sure if your slide deck is using a slide theme, you can click the layout option in the main toolbar. If all of the slide layouts are blank and white, you're probably not using a slide theme. If you click the theme option next to layout, you can choose one of the preset themes from Google, or you can click the import theme button to use a theme from a different slide deck that you've already created. To edit and customize the slide theme of your current slide deck, you want to go to the slide ribbon and choose Edit Theme from the drop-down options. This opens up a pop-up window that allows you to edit the slide theme. As a reminder, this is not for adding content to your slide deck. It is for customizing the design of your presentation. If you pick one of these slide layouts on the left-hand side, you're making changes to the design of that specific slide layout. And Google will highlight in yellow the slides in your presentation that are currently using that specific layout. If you make changes to this slide at the very top called theme, this will affect every slide layout option, so it will impact all of the slides in your deck. This is useful if you want to pick a different font or typeface or color for the entire slide deck. If you'd like to create a new slide layout option, you can right-click by the layouts and select New Layout. Once I have a new layout, I can go to Insert, Placeholder, and I can add a placeholder for my title text or my body text or an image. Again, just as a reminder, this is not for adding actual content, just for customizing the design layout. So if I add an oval image placeholder to this layout, when I close out the slide theme window, the next time I go to make a new slide, I can choose that custom layout option I just made, and it will have the design set up exactly the way I want. Okay, so now I want to check out some of our slide content. So on our title slide, we have an image for our slide background. First thing I want to check is this image part of the slide background layer? So is it a decorative element or is it an actual image just copied and pasted on? So because I can actually click on the image directly and move it around, I know that it is not a background image. To fix that, I can right click on the image and choose Set Image as Background. You can also click the background option and then choose image, and it will allow you to upload an image from your computer or Google Drive or copy and paste an image link in. Another thing I'm noticing is that the title text on this slide is pretty difficult to read. It says things to do at U of M, but against the image, it's not very legible. So one way to fix this could be to add a highlight or fill color to my text box so that the title text has a solid background against it. So I'm going to select my text box, choose the paint bucket option, fill color, and right now it's set to transparent by default, but I can pick any color that I want. Maybe I'll do this dark blue. And then I can adjust the shape however I like. And now the text is a bit easier for me to read. Okay, so for the white text, I feel like the blue background has a pretty good color contrast, but we can double check this ourselves. So I'm going to open up the WebAIM color contrast tool. I have it bookmarked in my web browser, and this will allow me to check the colors in the slide deck in real time. So I am going to click the color picker option and use this little eyedropper tool to actually select the exact color from my slide. So I will grab the white for my foreground, that's my text color, and then the blue for my background color. And I can see that the color contrast ratio is 12.09. I've got a green pass, so this color combination passes. I'm good to go there. If you don't have the color contrast tool installed, you can also use the website version on webaim.org to pull the colors in. There's a few different options. So you can do that same color eyedrop picker that I just showed. You just need to have two browser windows open side by side. Or you can pull what is called the hex code for each color and copy and paste that into the website. To do that, you click the text colors in Google Slides, go to custom colors, and then you can copy and paste the hex code in for each one. And you'll notice it has that same eyedrop picker feature. So you can pull in the exact color you're using and just copy and paste the hex code. It does the same exact check. So do whichever is easiest for you. Okay, so we've got a good color contrast on our title slide. But I'm going to check one of the other slides. So for my first content slide, I have my title text activities in black and a blue header. And it's not super easy for me to read. So I'm going to change my title text color to white to match the previous slide because I know the contrast is good. So I could go through each slide in this deck and adjust each one to have that white text one by one, or I can go into my slide theme and adjust all of the slides with this layout. So I'm going to click Slide, Edit Theme, and it will take you directly to the slide layout that you're currently using. Remember, if I make this adjustment at the theme level, it will do it for every slide in the deck. So I'm just going to do it for this specific slide layout. So all I need to do is select the title text and change my text color to white. And that's it. It should update all of the slides currently using this layout. If nothing happens, you might need to click this reapply to all button. So now I'll close out of my theme and all of my slides using this layout now have white text. So that's perfect. I think this saves you a lot of time, especially if you have a really long presentation. So it can really come in handy. Some other changes I can do in the slide theme. Right now, I have this blue header element as like an actual shape, but this is really more of a decorative object. I think it makes sense to go in the theme itself. So I'm going to copy this blue rectangle shape, go to Slide, Edit Theme, and hit Paste. I might need to adjust my layout order so that it goes behind the text. But again, I can make any changes that I want and it will update for every slide using this layout. So if I close out here, now all of my slides have that background layer. And I know because I can remove the shape that we had before and the actual rectangle is part of the slide itself. Okay, one more change I want to make in the slide theme is adding slide numbers. So by default, Google Slide themes should have slide numbers in the bottom right-hand corner. If for some reason the slide numbers got removed or you just don't see them, you can add them in by clicking Insert and then Slide Numbers. Once you have slide numbers in your theme, you can adjust the style. So I might go to my theme slide for this one so that they're consistent across the entire deck, and change maybe the text size so it's a little bigger, the color too, maybe the positioning. And then once I'm happy with that, I can close out my slide theme. And you might say, wait, where did the slide numbers go? I don't see them in the actual deck. That's because we still have to insert them into the actual slide deck. All we did was adjust the design. So I will click Insert Slide Numbers and turn that feature on. I can skip the title slide if I want to. And then if I click Apply to Selected, it will only do it to my current slide. If I hit Apply, it will do it to all of the deck. So I'm going to hit Apply there. And there we go. Now I have slide numbers in my deck. All right, so moving on to list formatting. So right now on slide 2, I have a list of sports and arts activities. To check if I'm using proper list formatting, I just need to move my cursor to one of the list items and see if the list option is highlighted in my toolbar. And I can see that my list is not formatted correctly. So to fix this, I just need to highlight my list and then select bulleted list. I can use the drop down if I want a custom option, but I'll just do the regular bulleted dots. And now my list is actually formatted as a full list. So I'm just gonna get rid of these little dashes here that were just regular text. Okay, so when I switched to a proper list format, I did lose some of that white space between my list items because they were inserted as hard enters, like blank spaces that are now empty list items here. So to fix this, we want to use the built-in line and paragraph spacing. So I'm gonna select my list items, the sub bullets here, click line and paragraph spacing from my toolbar, and then add space after list item. You can also do the custom spacing if you want to. Once I do that, I can double check and see that my paragraph spacing is set up correctly because when I highlight these list items, the space underneath it is highlighted right along with it. You might have also noticed that my text size for my sub-bullets got a bit smaller once it became a real list. That's because of my theme formatting. So if I go to Slide, Edit Theme, and I'll actually do this at the theme slide level. If I select my second level formatting, I can up the text size for what my second level sub-bullets look like. So I did that. And when I close out, now it's set for the whole deck. I don't have to worry about it again. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next slide, slide 3. So we have a bunch of hyperlinks here in our list of libraries, and they are all full URLs. So what we want to do is provide more descriptive link text for each of these. To do this, I can use the text that I have in this list for each library. So instead of saying Hatcher Graduate Library and then listing the full URL, I can just attach it to this text. So I will click the link and hit copy, select my descriptive text, and then choose the insert link option from the toolbar. And then I can just paste my link in and hit apply. And that's it. Another way to do this, if I didn't already have descriptive text on the slide, could be to click the URL. Then you might need to scroll down a bit sometimes. There we go. And Google gives me this shortcut option where it will replace the URL with the title of the web page or file. So all I have to do is hit yes, and I'm all set. And I can do the same thing for Shapiro Library. And there we go. One more thing I want to adjust on this slide. I had this text libraries before my list, and it was underlined to emphasize it, but now it looks pretty similar to my hyperlinks. So I might remove the underline and just use something else to emphasize it, like bold font instead. I also wanted to show that for this slide deck, this teal color is my link text color by default. If I want a different link color, I can highlight each link and change them one by one, or I can go to Slide, Edit Theme, and then choose this colors option. And this will allow me to edit my theme colors. So I would click link from my drop down options, and then I can just pick a different color, maybe a classic blue. And once I do that, it will update all the links in my slide deck for me. So if I close this out, all of my links are updated here. And on the next slide, all of those updated as well. So super handy. Okay, so now I'm on slide 4. We have a bunch of images here that need alt text. So to add alt text, all you have to do is select an image, right click it, and then choose the alt text option from the drop down list. The format options pane will open up on the right hand side of my screen. And then in the alt text field, I just have to type my description in. This is a practice deck, of course. In a real situation, the context of the image would matter. For now, I'll just write University of Michigan, Museum of Art. And then I've already went ahead and added alt text to my other 2 images, but you can do it in one go just by selecting the images with this pane open. Okay, so now that we have all of our content for this slide in place, the next thing I want to check is the reading order. So in Google Slides, the way you can check your reading order is by using the tab key on your keyboard to tab through the elements. The order in which your tab selects items is the order in which Assistive Tech will process your slide content. So I'm going to start tabbing through my slide elements. So I hit the tab key and it goes to the slide title first. So that's great. And then I go to the text box that has the word museums in it. Okay, that seems right. I'll hit tab again. Now we jumped to the UMA image first, then the UMA text. So that's maybe not what I wanted. Then the Natural History Museum image, and then the text for that, and then the Kelsey Museum image, and then the text for that. So my reading order is not how I anticipated it, and I wanted it to go more top to bottom, left to right with the images and text boxes. So to fix the reading order in Google Slides, it is kind of hard. You can right click any object and choose order to bring items forwards or backwards in the layering order. And this will adjust your reading order correctly. However, it gets pretty difficult to keep track of what order things are in, especially if you have a slide with a lot of different objects. So this is where our extension tool, Grackle Slides, really comes in handy. It makes it so much easier to adjust reading order. So I already have Grackle installed. If you do not, you can find it on the U of M accessibility website. We also have the Grackle link in the slide deck as well. So to run Grackle, I'm going to click Extensions from my top level menu in Google Slides and choose Grackle Slides and then Launch. The very first time you do this, it will ask you to log in with U of M credentials and verify that Grackle is okay to run. Once it starts running, the Grackle pane will show up on the right-hand side of my slide deck, and it's scanning everything for accessibility issues. So Grackle's finished running, and it looks like we passed all of the automated checks, so that's great. But the reading order is something that an automated tool cannot fix for you because only you know the correct order that you want your slide content read out in. So I'm going to click the slide structure tab in Grackle. And I can see it scanned my content and is giving me the reading order for the slides. If you get a red failure or error here like I did, you might need to click that refresh button at the top so Grackle can rescan the slide. So once I've done that, it looks like it processed all the content correctly. So that's great. So I'm going to take a look at slide number 4. And if I click through these items, I can see the order in which they have been processed. So I start with the title spaces, and then it goes to the museum's text box, and then the UMA image. So to fix the order here, where I want the UMA image read after the UMA text box, I just click this and I can drag and drop to readjust the order there. So now it's going text box, then image, and I can just keep moving through this and make any adjustments that I want. I'll move the Kelsey Museum image below the text box. Okay, and once I'm happy with my reading order, I can double check to make sure Grackle actually adjusted this properly. So I will go back to my slide and use my tab check again. And I'm tabbing through and it looks like the order is updated. So that's perfect. So this is just one instance where I really think the Grackle extension is super helpful. It can save you a ton of time with reading order. So I highly recommend it. Okay, if we go back to the accessibility check tab in Grackle, there's lots of other things that Grackle checks for. You'll notice that some of them get flagged as actual issues in red. Others are more like warnings in yellow. With things like color contrast or um, text readability, Grackle can warn you about it, but it's really up to you to check and verify that you're using accessible fonts or color combinations. This one about the empty trailing lines is always helpful. I leave these in on accident all the time. It's just extra blank space that you entered. If I click on the issue in Grackle, it will take me to the location in the slide deck where it is. So I can see the extra blank space I had and I can just remove it. Another issue that it flagged for me was with my title text. So it looks like slides 3 and 4 have the exact same title text spaces. One way to fix this is just to add a number. So you could have like spaces 1 of 2, and then spaces 2 of 2. And now they each have unique text, even though it's the same idea. Once you make any changes like that, you will have to hit recheck in order for Grackle to rescan the slide deck and update the information here. It can be a little slow if you have a lot of content in your slide deck, just as a heads up. Some additional things you can do in Grackle, you can mark images as decorative. So if I go to images should have alt text under the elements section, and I click on one of these images, there's this little add tag option next to it. If I click that, it will give me a pop-up window that lets me either mark as an artifact, so that marks it as decorative, or you can update your alt text here too. This slide deck doesn't have a table in it, but if it did, you can use Grackle to add column and header rows to your tables, which is something you cannot do with the built-in Google functionality. So that's another good thing to be aware of there. Okay, so I think that is the end of our demo portion. I'm gonna hop back over to the slides. I have just a few more resources here. Most of these I mentioned or used at some point during the demo. that you can just reference later on. This Google Slides accessibility checklist compiles a lot of the information we talked about today, that you can just reference next time you make a new slide deck or review an existing one. So feel free to check any of these resources out. Okay, now I will stop talking for a moment and see if there are any pressing questions that I can help answer. Okay, if there's no open questions there, I can keep moving, but if someone thinks of one, feel free to put those in the Q&A box. Um, At the end of this slide deck, we just have some information and resources about our office, the Disability Equity Office. We have a QR code and a link to our Happenings at Michigan page, which has all of our workshops and events like this one, if you're interested in attending more. We have our ADA initial contact form. This is how you can contact our office if you need a workplace accommodation, if you need ASL or CART services for an event, if you have digital accessibility questions, anything like that. We have our form for requesting training or workshops. So if you'd like to do that for your specific unit or department, you can fill out that form and we can come present on one of these topics. We also have our report barriers to access form. If you encounter a physical or digital access barrier on campus or on a website or application, you can report those to our office to get those addressed. Or if someone else experiences a barrier, you can also report on their behalf. And then finally here we have information about how to self-identify or update your disability status in Wolverine Access. You can do that through the employee self-service portal. And then here we just have some more learning opportunities from DEO. So that link to our YouTube channel for the recorded trainings and presentations, as well as a link to sign up for our DEO newsletter if you want to hear more from us.
Serena,
Okay. Yes.
so sorry to interrupt. This is
No
Jessica
problem.
McClegg. We do have a couple of questions, one of which I'll address, and then I'm going to toss it back over to you for some of the technical questions about slides. So we've had a couple of people ask about the authorizations required for Grackle. Um, we understand that recently the level of access that Grackle is requesting has changed, and people have been asked to reauthorize Grackle as an extension. We are going to reach out to our colleagues in ITS to get more information about this, and we'll share it with everyone in the follow-up email that goes out. This is not a product that we manage, so they are the ones that have been in touch with Grackle about this change, but we'll let you know what it means and whether or not to move forward with that reauthorization as it currently stands. And then back to the technical content, we did have a question about unique slide titles and how to fix those. So different options for addressing slide titles that are not unique.
Yeah, so I would say if the slides are titled the same because they all belong in the same section, using that technique I demonstrated with like having the number at the end of it. So like best practices, 1 of 4, and then doing that for each slide in that section can be helpful because then you know they all belong to that same section area, but they do have unique text. Um, Another technique, if you have slides that you don't want a title added to, you can move the slide title like out of the view of the content itself. So it still exists and it's still processed or read out by assistive tech, but it's not visually displaying on your screen. So that's like a couple ways that I usually handle slide title stuff.
Thanks, Serena. We had a couple of other questions that pertain to the themes that you can edit in Google Slides, specifically about the ability to adjust colors, default colors in your slide deck for text and links. And then we also have a question about inserting additional image placeholders that go beyond the number of default placeholders that are offered in the standard templates in Google Slides.
Yeah, so I will actually exit out of the slides for a moment so I can go back to that demo view. So for the colors adjusting for the theme, I can do that by clicking slide edit theme and then this colors theme colors option up here. And there's the drop downs where you can adjust any of the text colors and set those. So I did it for the link, but you could do it for your text and your background options. You can customize that as much as you want to. Um, and these are what will populate when you go to like pick a text color by default in the theme up at the top. And then the other part of that question with the image placeholder options. So again, if you don't want to use like the default theme layouts here, and I want to add new placeholders in, I just click insert placeholder, and then I can add in as many of these as I want. So I only put one image in, I could put in multiple. I can add like another image option there. Um, and I can customize this really as much as I want. I can add in more body text, anything like that. And then when you go to create that new slide, it will update that layout for you. You can also create more layouts too if you really want to get custom with the setup there. Okay, hopefully that answered those questions too.
That was perfect. Thanks, Serena. I think that's those are all of the broad general questions that we received. So thanks for your responses.
Thanks, Jess. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you all so much for coming. Um, as Jess mentioned, we will be sending a follow-up email after this presentation. It will include links to the presentation slides and some of the resources we used. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming today.